So in building the team for the soft cost, we had to go and get first of all, an architectural firm, which we did. And just for that process, we went through 4 or 5 quotes. I forget now. I think it was 4. And we had got really wide price range. So we got like simple to triple basically of what the cost would be. We ended up finding someone for about 28,000 to do the project, to do the execution plan, so really plans for construction for permit, and we got quoted all the way to like 180,000. Same project, same documents that we provided, and so this is an example of again of when you go and get quotes, you got to be extremely specific on the scope of work, and you give the same scope of work to everyone who bids. And then you need to be really clear with them exactly of what it is that you're looking for from them and what they have to quote on, which is in this case, obviously the scope of work. Except that once again, I got from like single to like 4 times just on the architectural. Hello, and welcome back to the Very Real Estate Effect podcast, a show dedicated to real estate investing right here in Quebec. And today is a solo episode, and I've been meaning to record this for quite a while. And you might have heard me a couple episodes ago with Dino when we were talking about sharing, about social media. And I've had the idea to give an update and run you through how the project is going, because I'm in this for about 18 to 24 months, and just thought it might be a great idea to run you through the daily stuff that I'm going through. So I'd just like to start with giving a bit of a description of the project, where we are now, and I'll record some episodes frequently to let you know where we're at, because hey, you being interested in real estate, you also want to know what is the process to develop land, because that's really, for at least for me, the future on how to make some good projects and build projects that will create wealth in the long run. So first of all, before I go any further, I really appreciate your support. Thank you for sharing this episode with someone who could benefit from this learning. And please send us some feedback, subscribe to the show, leave us some comments and feedback. It really, really helps. So here you go. So back in January, someone approached me with a project that kind of fit what I was looking for. And I know this person from he's very active in the real estate Montreal world, very active in development. And he had this project under contract, and he thought I might be interested because he knew that it fit exactly what I was looking for, and it did. As you know now, we've done a few optimization projects, a few redevelopments, but never like a full-on new construction. And so that's what I was looking for, except that in new construction, there's a fairly big element of risk when it comes to when you just find land. You have to find what is the best use of that land, right? Depending on zoning, depending on a lot of things, and I'll go into it in a little bit more details. And this project sits on 2 plots of land in the city of Saint-Jérôme, located between the river and a busy street. And the project, this land rather, had already been approved for a special project. So in Quebec, it's called the PPC-moi, which is Projet Particulier Construction Modification, and the 2 other last letters, I don't remember what they stand for, but it's basically when you submit a project to the city that doesn't fit exactly into the zoning box. They're not necessarily against it, it's just that you have to go through a process to get your project approved. And that's fairly lengthy. That's about a 6 months to 1 year process, depending on the city, how busy, and so on and so forth. So this project was deposited to the city back in 2019. The owner at the time was going to do it and start building in 2020, and we all know what happened in 2020, and a lot of people got cold feet on projects, and I don't blame them because it was a rather challenging period. So the 2 pieces of land put together are about 16,000 square feet. And the project that was approved on it as I said, does not fit in the zoning box. It's a little bit bigger, it's a little bit higher, and so on and so forth. So the project that is approved is for 16 underground parking spots. So there's a full floor underground with a ramp. Then there is about 5,500 square feet of commercial space on the ground floor. And then above, there is 3 floors plus a mezzanine for 16 residential units, mostly 2 bedrooms. There's a few 1 bedrooms and there's 1 3 bedroom. So we have a pretty good unit mix. And it's very well located in town. It's fairly close to the train station. It's in the downtown core, and there's a fair amount of demand for new dwellings. There's a lot of demand for new dwellings everywhere in Quebec, and the Saint-Jérôme happens to be a fairly growing town, and so they're always eager to add some more units to be able to house more people, collect more taxes, and so on and so forth. So the process, I'm going to do to my best of my abilities to recall everything that went on a couple of months ago. So I'm going to go into more details on some items, a little bit less on some others. And then we'll kind of go like week by week or every 2 weeks to give you an update, because it's been really interesting in terms of the redevelopment process. So first of all, when this person approached me because I shared with everyone what is it that I was looking for. I had mentioned that I was looking for a construction project, with a decent size, but not too big. Like I can't tackle 50 units and above yet. And my goal, and I've already shared it with you, is eventually in the future to find a big piece of land where we can develop a couple of 100 units to be able to house families, to build an entire neighborhood, house families so they can create memories. Because as life goes on, I keep realizing that what's important in life is making memories, and it's for myself and for others. And I want to be able to provide other people that opportunity to have a good place to live, raise kids, grow their business, and just go on with life in a place where they feel good. So that's my objective. But in order to develop a couple 100 units, I need to start with a smaller project to get my feet wet and understand how it works and how it goes and what are the ins and outs, especially with the development process, because I realized it's quite tricky. So originally this project was brought to me in end of January, beginning of February, for a closing end of April. So we negotiated. There was the seller, there was another partner in there, and it took quite a bit of back and forth to be able to agree on the terms. And what happened is that the seller actually wanted to develop this since 2019, because he's into commercial space and he wanted to do it to be able to get the 5,500 square feet of commercial, because as I said, it's very well located. Except it's one thing to be managing commercial space, it's another thing to be a developer. And I think this is where maybe he found a project a little too big than what he can or wanted to handle. So he was happy to sell it. And we built in the agreement that I would go and develop it, and then he was going to buy back the commercial space once it's completed. So we have an agreement and he's tied. We have a development agreement, and he also agreed to a big balance of sale, which is really helpful for us because that means that we can start the project with less cash down. So always negotiate, especially in the tumultuous times that we're going through now. You'd be surprised by the number of people who want to get rid of their property, and they're willing to give you very favorable terms for your financing. So that's what we did. Now, in taking on this new project, we also got the plans that were approved. We got the resolution from the city allowing for this special project. And I got most of the documentation prior to that moment. So there's obviously an evaluation that was done. There is a study on rentals and the need for rental units in that neighborhood. There was an environmental phase 1. There was a few other documents. I don't really recall what they are now, but they were fairly important. But this is the core that I've used, that I just listed. So it took a little bit more time, and we were finally able to close beginning of May. So by then, I had incorporated a company. I took another partner in. I have someone that came in with me as an active partner. He's also very interested in learning the development process and seeing how it goes. So I do most of the work, and I run him through where we're at, what we do, and so on and so forth. It's been really interesting. It's been a bit stressful, but it's been fun. And I want to get to the fun part. The fun part is that when you have a project like that, obviously you have to determine the optimal use of the land. So you have to look at the zoning, and the zoning, let's say it's zoned for commercial. So, okay, if it's commercial, then this is what you have to do, except you have to maximize. You have to maximize the floor space. You have to maximize the number of floors. You have to try to maximize absolutely everything on it to make it worth it, to make it financially viable. So in our case, because there was already a project that was approved, we can really go back to that. But the project already being special by definition means that it was asking for more than what was allowed. Therefore, we kind of check that box in the criteria. And what attracted me to the project is that because it was already approved by the city, it eliminated a big piece of the risk when it comes to land development, where you don't know if your project is going to be authorized. And then you might start thinking, well, unless we can do a project so-and-so, then it wasn't worth buying the land, and so on and so forth. So in this case, we didn't have that risk because the project was already approved. So that was one of the good things. So then we need plans for permit and plans for construction in order to be able to start the building application process with the city and start to get quotes from general contractors, do the financing, and so on and so forth. So we're a little bit past that now, but I'm going to walk you through some of the steps that we had to do. So first, we had to build a team. And we always say in real estate, like you're only as good as your team. And in this case, I'm quite proud because we were able to build a really good team. So I knew there was about 100K roughly of soft cost. The soft cost, as opposed to the construction cost, the soft cost is everything that requires the brain. So all of the disciplines such as mechanical engineering, architecture, civil plans, structural, also fire prevention, biologist, and so on and so forth. It's all those trades that where you need a professional to be working with his brain. So that's part of the soft cost and also the land surveyor, as opposition to the hard cost, which is like the actual construction, like start to dig and do the excavation, like pour concrete. This is hard cost. It's really the construction. So in building the team for the soft cost, we had to go and get first of all, an architectural firm, which we did. And just for that process, we went through 4 or 5 quotes. I forget now. I think it was 4. And we had got really wide price range. So we got like simple to triple, basically, of what the cost would be. We ended up finding someone for about $28,000 to do the project, to do the execution plan, so really plans for construction, for permit, and we got quoted all the way to like 180,000. Same project, same documents that we provided, and so this is an example of again of when you go and get quotes, you got to be extremely specific on the scope of work, and you give the same scope of work to everyone who bids. And then you need to be really clear with them exactly of what it is that you're looking for from them and what they have to quote on, which is in this case, obviously the scope of work, except that once again, I got from like single to like 4 times just on the architectural. Then we needed to build a team with electromechanic engineering. So for a building this size, you need an engineering firm who's going to look at all the circuits. So electricity, plumbing, HVAC system, and HVAC is heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. Where is the water going to be coming into the building? What about do we have obviously the electricity network, the gas network, everything that is considered a mechanical part, a mechanical system of the building. So that's absolutely crucial. So same thing, we went out, got several quotes, and we picked the best. And the best isn't necessarily the cheapest. The best is a balance between the quality of the work, the price, the availability, because some say, sure, I can do that project, except I can start work in 4 months. And that's not what we were looking for at this point. Then we build a team with the structural engineer. So same thing, like building this size, we need to see like, what are the foundations going to look like? How does the building gets anchored to the ground? Do you need pilings? Do you need extra walls? And then how are you going to build it? Is it going to be a wood structure? Is it going to be a steel structure? Is it a combination of both? Is it wood and concrete? Is it just all concrete? Like there's a lot of questions that go into it and a lot of actually technical calculations. And that's why you hire a professional, you get an engineer. Then we needed a civil engineer. The civil engineer is for mostly everything that is water related. So water coming in and then water coming out. And water coming out of the building, there's at least two different networks. There's what we call les pluviales, which is rainwater. So rain from the roof. Where is it going to go? Is it going to go into the sewer? Is it going to go into the river? You also need to retain as much of it as possible. So there's a lot of questions around there. And also for obviously sewage. How is that all going to be connected and how is it all going to work? So now we're down to the civil engineer. And because in our case, we're more than 4 floors, 4 levels, the building needs sprinklers. And in order to have a sprinkler system, you need another type of engineer. It's for fire prevention. So that's what the team right now look like. Obviously, we have other people involved, but that's just on the developing the plans team. And just as a caveat, like you think one thing is simple, but by the time we got on the fire prevention engineer a little bit later into the process, and the first thing he did is, well, before I can start to draw the plans for the network and for the sprinkler system, I need to know how much pressure is in the city pipes. And in order to do that, he needs to get another contractor to come and do some measurements on a hydro, on a bomb for fire prevention. So they bring a machine, they plug it on there, they do some tests to be able to evaluate how much pressure, because depending on the pressure, it's going to determine the size of the pipes that are needed. So it's all those factors that you don't know what you don't know, but the more you advance, the more people tell you what they need. And again, as a developer, you don't need to be a structural engineer. You just need to be able to go find a really good one so he can do the work professionally. You need to be the conductor. You don't need to play all the instruments. And this is something that I often remind myself. So we built our team, and we had that by the end, by about mid-May, we had our team of professionals. And we had a kickoff meeting where basically everyone on Zoom, and we go over all the specs of the building. So everything that we're going to do, everything that we have to respect, because once again, this project was already approved, but yet we need to submit building plans that correspond exactly to what was approved a little while ago. And we have a resolution number from the city with the basic indications of we allow this building to be taller than, but no more than, and so on and so forth. So those are all the factors to be taken into account. Now we built that team, we did the kickoff, and then we met every week or every second week. In our case, it was on Thursday at 11, where we had a Zoom meeting with everyone who's involved, and the architect took the lead on the coordination with the other professionals to really be able to draw and talk and make all the decisions, such as, what kind of heating system, what kind of air conditioning system, is it connected or is it independent? Are we going to use the gas, and so on and so forth? And also in our case, we had the commercial space that in my contract with the buyer, I have to deliver as base building. Now, what does that mean, base building? That means that we're going to deliver an enclosed concrete box with water, electricity, and in our case, gas. But then it's the commercial owner who's going to determine, as a function of his tenants, how and where they're going to do their partitions on the inside, because that entire 5,500 square feet space can be divided into up to 3 areas. It could be 1, it could be 2, it can be 3. So he needs to have all that flexibility to make those decisions, to decide what kind of tenant he's going to get in there. So then we went on for quite a while on the, so this lasted for about 6 weeks to 2 months, with a hard date of being able to submit our building permit application with the city for beginning of July, which we hit. This was last week. We were able to deposit everything. And so now the city needs to study everything that we've done to be able to verify and make sure that it corresponds to the resolution that was approved a couple of years ago, and that we meet all the requirements and the authorization so that they can deliver their building permits. Now, In parallel to this, something rather regrettable happened literally 3 weeks before we closed. Is that that building is a commercial? It was a commercial duplex. It's been vacant since 2018, and it's been squatted a lot. There's a number of reports from the police department, from the fire department. In fact, a little while ago, there's some squatters that were in there, and it started a little fire. It was put out, and the city had been putting pressure on the seller and now me to actually get that building down. And because of the conditions, it was bad, and it was squatted, and it was dangerous. Now, about 3 weeks before closing, I got the call from the seller and my partner that the building was actually on fire. It seems like it had been squatted one more time. They started a fire, and this time it was maybe a little bit bigger. And the fire department was on site, and so this was about like 6 p.m. in the evening. I was quite worried, so I actually went up there around 8 p.m. And yeah, the whole building was on fire. They had to shut off the gas network because it was feeding the fire. And in the end, they ended up. So I stood far away. Obviously, it's cordoned off and it's a dangerous area. At the end, I left there by about 9:30 p.m. They were going in there with a bulldozer to level the building and just knock it down. So when they did that, they actually ended up like pushing some of it towards the river, which is now problematic for us. So we're trying to see with the city what can be done about all that. So now we need to do the cleanup after the fire, but then we don't need to do the demolition like it was before, except that prior to the building going on fire in the phase 1 environment test, it showed that there was a little bit of asbestos. So the place needed to be contaminated before being fully demolished. And now that it burnt, the whole place is treated as a contamination. So it needs to be cleaned up. And something else that I forgot to mention is that because we are by the river, part of the old building was in what is called la bande riveraine. It's like the strip of land that's really close to the river, which in quotation mark belongs to the river, even though it's ours. We're not allowed to build in it, and nothing can be done, like no human activity, so that when the water level rises in spring and then it goes back down, and it's important to have good trees so it holds the soil and for the natural habitat an environment to be able to have a little world, because we need ducks and frogs and all the insects, and we need to preserve the quality of the river and for the fish and all that. And so in order to finish, I was going to say the demolition, we needed an authorization from the city. So that's what from the city and from the ministry. And that was a rather challenging process, and I will get through it in next episode. This is a lot of information, and for me, it's been ongoing for about 3-4 months. So I'm just trying to give you in like 25 minutes the reality that I went through over several months. And it's been a tremendous learning experience. It's been challenging because there's a lot of things that I couldn't have thought of, I didn't know, and you learn as you go, and you do your best and you put it together. So I'm going to stop here for today. Thank you for listening in. I hope this was interesting, and I'll follow up in the next couple of weeks with another episode of update on this project. Thank you very much for following us. And again, share this episode with a friend. Thank you very much. Talk to you next week. Bye-bye.